So I want to tell you why Caring Kind is so important to me, and I want to tell a little bit of a personal story. 9 years ago, when my mom, Karen, was 61 years old, or only 61 years old, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I can't describe what it's like to find out that your mom has an incurable disease that will make her disappear in front of your eyes. It's unfathomable. It's unreal. It's unbelievable. And I didn't believe it. My mom at 61 looked 45, and my dad's here today, and I know she'd want me to say 35, and she'd probably be right. She was beautiful with her radiant smile. She was in amazing shape, an avid cyclist who loved to take her dogs for walks. She was a successful financial planner. She worked diligently for her clients. And most importantly to her, she was a loving grandma to her grandchildren. She was simply the best. She loved people. She did everything she could to connect with people and to make them feel comfortable and good. She was the best mom and the most important person in my life. She was always there for me, listening to my thoughts, my feelings, my concerns, hugging me when I needed a hug, giving me strength when I needed strength, and always letting me know that no matter what, she loved me unconditionally. I remember sitting in my kitchen when I was a kid with my mom and my grandma and my great-grandma. We sat laughing and telling stories and talking about how my mom would live forever. My great-grandma lived to be 105, her sister 107, and I was counting on my mom doing the same. I never even contemplated losing my mom. But 9 years ago, I was told she was going to go away. She was going to disappear. She was going to slowly lose her memories. She was going to forget me. Now, everybody handles this differently. My dad, he put my mom in a clinical trial, and he tried to get her involved in classes to keep her mind working. But my dad also became discouraged and almost depressed. My dad, a veterinarian and an amazing photographer, had just sold his veterinary practice. He planned on spending the next stage of his life traveling the world with my mom, chronicling their travels through photography, and spending time with their grandchildren. But that was not going to happen. Instead, he was going to watch his wife disappear, and he would become a full-time caregiver. He became angry. He became sad. He didn't know what to do. But then he found Caring Kind. Caring Kind helped him and helped my mom. My dad joined support groups and realized he wasn't alone. In many ways, Caring Kind saved my dad's life. My mom took classes to keep her mind sharp. One class she took was at the MoMA. It was an art appreciation class. The New York Times interviewed my mom. Just being interviewed demonstrated my mom's bravery and courage. Many with Alzheimer's disease do not want others to know about it, but not my mom. Keeping it to herself, hiding it away, that wouldn't help anyone else. And she always wanted to help other people. So she agreed to be interviewed. She agreed to let the world know she had Alzheimer's disease. She wanted the world to know she was still Karen and that there was nothing to be ashamed of. In the interview, she was her typical optimistic, excited self. She noted, "I think the program is awesome." My mom loved the word awesome. She loved the program, but in the article, she also pointed out the reality of Alzheimer's disease. She said, and I quote, "It's a tough disease for a lot of reasons. One, you forget things. Two, there is no cure. It is hard in the beginning because you are slowly saying goodbye to yourself." Think about that. Just imagine that. How do you slowly say goodbye to yourself? When I learned about my mom, I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the woman who reared me, loved me, taught me, supported me, and cared for me was going to disappear. Not only couldn't I believe it, I refused to believe it, so I ignored it. But it gave me such regret. It gave me regret for many reasons. But the main reason is that I missed time with my mom when she could still connect with me and engage in conversation and remember who I was. I felt as if I was abandoning my mom at the exact time she needed me most. When I shared this feeling with one friend, this feeling of regret, this feeling of abandoning my mom, my friend said, "She's still alive. You love her and she loves you. Don't feel like you are abandoning her. Go see her. So I decided to do that. But first, I sat down and I wrote a letter to her, a letter trying to explain my feelings. When I was writing it, my son, who was 12 at the time, walked over. He read the letter over my shoulder and then asked, "If I see Grandma, will she know who I am?" I told him she would not. He thought about that for a few minutes, and then he said, "Well, even if she won't know who I am, I would like to go see her and give her a hug. I think she would like that." So we went to see her. I sat with her and I read my letter. I expected her to just stare straight ahead because at that point, 7 years after being diagnosed, she didn't remember anything anymore. But she didn't stare straight ahead. She turned to me and she listened. When I finished reading it, she looked at me and said, "You look sad. Are you okay?" I choked up. She recognized me. She wanted to be there for me. She wanted to help. She wanted to be my mom. I tried to speak, but I couldn't get the words out. I was choking on my own breath. Finally, I pulled myself together, and I said, "Yes, Mom, I am okay. Thank you so much for asking." She was gone again. But I had that moment, and I keep that moment in my heart every minute of every day. And remember, my son wanted to give my mom a hug. So what about that hug? When we were leaving, I walked over to my mom, who was sitting and listening to Frank Sinatra, staring straight ahead, and I kissed her on the cheek and said goodbye. She just sat there. Then my son went over. He kissed her and he said, "Goodbye, Grandma." She just sat there. I felt sadness come over me. Sadness for my son, sadness for myself, sadness for my mom, and sadness for everyone who lives with this disease. But just then, something amazing happened. My mom turned and looked at my son. She opened her arms wide. My son walked into her arms. My mom closed her arms around him and pulled him in tight. My son got his hug. My son got his grandma. My mom was back. And then she was gone again. Thank you all so much for your support. Have a great night.